Hey, Spilled Milkers, welcome back. Andrew Zimmern here. Yes, I'm in my house. Yes, I grabbed the first t-shirt after I got home from a long trip that was clean and on the top of the pile, which you guessed it, is the shirt that someone pointed out 2 weeks ago they really liked that I was wearing. No, I don't wear the same shirt every time that I do this. Happy holidays. This is the last Ask Me Anything Before Christmas. No, I'm not Santa. I don't know what the hell is going on. I've got like some weird cowlicks in my beard. I need to get it all fixed. Anyway, that's what's going on for me. How about for you? Everyone having a good end of the year? I hope so. Let's get right to it. By the way, if you're in need of stocking stuffers at the last minute, a gift subscription to Spilled Milk, or some of my spices, andrewzimmern.com, go get both of them. Bernie writes, any restaurant trends you want to see go away next year? Or restaurant wishes you'd like to see come true? Should customers be nicer? Question mark. Yeah, I mean, I read shit all the time about this issue. Should people show up on time for a reservation? Should they leave within a reasonable hour? Should they limit special requests? Should they tip better, be kinder to staff? All that kind of stuff. And do I agree with all that? Absolutely. Do I also feel at the same time that customers are paying for a service or a product? And if you choose to walk away from an establishment because you don't believe the quality of the product or the service is up to snuff, go ahead and do so. Go ahead and do so. But just because you can afford a $25 Kettle One martini up, extra olives, little bit dirty, doesn't give you the right to be an asshole. And one thing that I've seen over and over and over again is people being jerks, not only in restaurants, but I mean, everywhere that there's a counter online waiting to check into a hotel. It's check-in time is 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. It's noon and someone is there screaming at the lowest level of employee in the front-facing system, the person behind the desk, not a manager, it's not a reservation VP. It's the person checking people in, yelling at them because somehow they think they're better and deserve more. It just absolutely boggles my mind. People should do all those things, but most importantly, be nicer. Life is hard. If the last 4 years have not shown you that life sometimes, oftentimes, most of the time isn't fair and we should just support each other and be nicer, I don't know what I have to offer you. Why wouldn't people want to be decent to someone who owns a small business, a restaurant, and just show up on time for your reservation? Why would someone want to overload an establishment with special requests or linger forever while other guests pile up at the front door waiting for a table? It's crazy making to me. That's called sharing and selflessness, right? Hey, why don't we get up from our table? We've just been here for 2 hours and go get a drink at the bar, or go somewhere else and sit down and chat. There's people waiting to sit down and eat. This poor restaurant needs to turn their tables to make a money. That's their product. Their table is their product. Why don't people want to be better tippers? Why wouldn't they want to be? If you can afford to eat out, then you're privileged. Why be rude to anyone, anywhere, at any time? I cannot believe for me. I'm shocked that in 2023, we're actually in need, which we are, by the way, of asking guests to be kinder to servers and retail employees of all kinds. Any front-facing job, working with consumers, anyone behind a counter, as I said, from airline employees to reservation staffers, you name it, is getting abused in greater numbers today than ever before. What do these entitled people want? Who do they think they are? Buying a sandwich or a $500 bottle of champagne, it doesn't give you the right to be discourteous and offensive, to behave poorly or raise your voice to someone. Ever. And by the way, nor should someone on the service side do that to you. But I don't see that. I always see it being provoked by the person on the consumer side of the counter. Do you know how many flights I'm on a month? A lot more than anyone I know. You know how many of them are delayed? Half of them. 99% because of no one's fault. Weather. And safety reasons. And yet people are yelling and screaming at the person who's delivering the news. It is absolutely mind-boggling to me. If you are a regular customer of United or American or Delta or Spirit or, Virgin or whatever, and you feel that your planes you're somehow being targeted and being penalized by the airline, don't fly them anymore. Do that. Vote with your feet. See how much better it is on another airline. Because I'll tell you something, as someone who flies a lot of airlines and is a multi-million miler on several of them, everyone's trying the best they can. Truly. Are there exceptions to the rule? Sure there are. But no one's targeting you. No one's trying to be unfair to you. So be nice to the people who are simply delivering the message. I want to encourage guests, restaurant goers, food lovers to seriously ask themselves, why do you go out to eat? Why do you go out to eat? What do you really want from that experience? Because if it's to engage in the company of a loved one or friends and enjoy a meal, or just to grab a quick lunch on the go by yourself, if that's what you want, then focus on what you're bringing to the experience and not how much dignity you can strip someone of because they didn't get you your coffee quickly enough. Think about it. Why are you going out? Why are you going out? People need to relax and enjoy their lives and lower their expectations of others, not because they don't deserve a certain level of finish of a meal they pay for, but because expectations are resentment builders. And that's like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It's a miserable way to live. My fear is that as a nation, as we become more divided and our world is more divisive, somehow it's become okay to be more boorish publicly in all spheres of life. I've spent a lifetime reminding people that restaurants are where we live our lives. They're the lifeblood of our main streets. They help define our culture. And as we strangle them to death and commoditize them, we are simply hurting ourselves. We're the losers. Restaurants aren't predicated on financial transactions as much as they are predicated on emotional ones. We feel things in them. And most of the time when I'm in them, I feel great. I feel better when I leave. But I try to go in there with a really good attitude of not only what am I going to get from the experience, but what am I going to bring to the experience? Okay, I'm done. I got that off my chest. Michael writes, "Hi, I'd like to start grinding my meat, but I don't know how to control the fat content. For example, if I wanted 80-20 ground beef, how would I gauge and control the proportions of lean to fat?" Weigh them. You can get a very, very simple, long-lasting, really good scale for $25, $30. And by the way, if you wait 3 more days, you can probably get it at 25% off. Weigh it. I mean, you can always eyeball it, but remember, muscle weighs more than fat, right? So in all seriousness, and I'm being very serious, 80-20 is great for something like burger meat. Certain things you want 70-30, and that's an important thing to remember, is what are you grinding for? If you're grinding for sausage, use a higher quality of pork fat, preferably from the neck and shoulders. That's where the best fat is. And I go about 70-30. Kay writes, Chef, is Shun still your knife of choice, or do you like Wusthof more? I mean, look, I don't want to yuck on anyone's yum, but Wusthof is not my knife of choice. Shun is my knife of choice. And I think they have the greatest variety of the best styles with the best varieties of steel in the best shapes for the best price across several price ranges, right? So if you want to get really, really fancy, they have that super high-end stuff that's almost custom. And if you want a beginner knife kit for your college graduate, they have that too. Yeah, I really like Shun. And it's why I've been working with them for like 7 years. I really think they're just super great. And for anyone who thinks that I don't have enough comparative experience, remember I have about 500 knives other than my Shun knives at work and here at home. And from every single maker, including some incredible collectibles from the 10 or 12 best knife makers on planet Earth, my opinion. Although there are 2 or 3 that I'm still trying to coax one out of, you know who you are. Seriously, there's some really great new knife makers out there that I'm trying to get on the waiting list. But yeah, I know a thing or two about knives and steel, and I think Shun is great. Gabe writes, Andrew, my wife and I are going to a wedding in Puglia, Italy. Puglia. The G is probably silent. We want to extend the trip by a week or so. Where should we go? What are the must-see and must-eat places in that region of Italy? Open to any and all recommendations. Thanks so much. Well, guess what? I was there a few years ago. Took a lot of notes from places online, called a lot of friends, asked around. And then I had a friend who went there for a 2-week holiday and wanted my recommendations. And so I called around again. I wrote down the things that I had. And so it's going to be right down there for you. But let me just tell you about a few of them. Cucina in Masseria in Mola de Bari. And if you love classic Italian cuisine and you want them to be family recipes and you want to eat them in a 17th century olive oil mill turned cookery school with classes and meals later, that's where you can get it. Ristorante Trabucci de Mimi in Peschici is named after the trabucco, which is a method of fishing where an enormous rock-anchored wooden contraption casts and retrieves nets from the water. And this restaurant mixes old-fashioned fishing practices and rustic recipes with modern cooking techniques. It's absolutely incredible. Specchia Sant'Oranzo in Polignano Amare. It's right at the edge of Polignano, which is a cute little cliff edge town. And the Specchia Sant'Oranzo restaurant is a romantic dining spot, leafy, candlelit, alfresco terrace. Go for it. Menu changes all the time, but their classics like their smoked swordfish, seafood risotto, pastas that have been made there since they opened are still always on the menu. In Bari, there is La Cantina de Ciana Ciane. That is just one of my favorite places anywhere. Lively, rustic, seats spill out onto the street, antipasti, seafood pasta, risotto. And I love sitting outside because Bari the town just rushes by you. Canteen Menhir in Minerverno de Lecce is another one of those places. It's a winery that sits in a 17th century palace, or it's a 17th century palace in a winery. I mean, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And in the old building is the restaurant, and you can taste the wine that they make on the premise and feast on dishes made with locally made ingredients. You can dine outdoors in season. It's beautiful. In Gallipoli, Il Bastione is on the seafront in the historical town of Gallipoli. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning. Great seafood. Do you see the theme here with the coastline in Puglia? Also in Polignano is mint cucina fresca. If you're looking for something, because you've eaten too much pasta, this is the restaurant to seek out. A lot of seasonal organic produce and really healthy modernist Italian offerings. But here's a thought for you. If you love to travel, look at Puglia a slightly different way. There's very little sophisticated, like fine dining, Michelin star stuff there, but a guaranteed way to have those types of experiences is to book a stay in a masseria. These are farmhouses and country houses that have been renovated for tourists. And they're sort of like at the heart of hardworking farms. They'll make lunch for you while you sit under an olive tree, eating olives from that same tree from the year beforehand with local cheeses. It's just a delight to stay at them, different ones every couple of days. Masseria Trapana is a 16th century farmhouse that I'm really fond of. I did a story about all these things. These are very tranquil getaways. If you're into wine, almost every single one of them makes their own. Remember, Puglia is the second largest wine producing region in Italy. And Masseria Amastuola is a fabulous one with some incredible wines that have won awards all over the country. Most importantly, if you're going when it's warm out, get to the water. It's very warm there. Seaside, you can expect simple and satisfying dishes. Porto Ghiacciolo, I always forget how to pronounce it, is just a stone's throw away from Monopoli. And you can just sit there and eat mussels and drink ice cold beer all day long. Zie Trattoria in Lecce is great. Masseria Eccellenza is great. Osteria del Tempo Perso is great. So there you go. That's my vibe for Puglia. I love it when someone asks me a question that I actually have recent experience with. Jan writes, what beer would you suggest for beer cheese soup? A really good bitter one. Something that's big, bold flavored. I used to always recommend Samuel Smith Pale Brown Ale for cooking because it had that nutty brown sweetness with just enough bitter in it. But beer cheese soup is so rich and so sweet from the cheese. Dairy is sweet. That I think that's where I would go with. He said he once tried Miller High Life, which I'm not against Miller. Love them. I mean, who doesn't love the Miller High Life company? But it's hard to cook with, Miller and Bud and that kind of thing and expect to get any kind of result flavor-wise. Denise writes, interested in what drew you to competing on Beat Bobby Flay? They asked me. She writes, I'm sure cooking with Brooke Williamson had to be a blast. It was. I adore that woman. Don't want to be a spoiler, but yes. The ultimate outcome, look, we all compete because we're competitive. No one ever asks me to compete. And my answer to anyone who wants me to compete in a food competition show is, yeah, of course. I've said yes every time I've been asked. I'm just never asked. Those shows, and I think it's a mistake. It's not a knock against them. But if you keep recirculating the same people all the time, I mean, you got to mix in some new faces and some old faces. But I'd cook against anyone, any day, anytime, anywhere. And if you lose, you lose. Go home a gentleman. There's so many stories from every season of these shows. And by the way, I judge a lot of them, so I know of what I'm talking about. From people who are like, that's it, I'm not doing this anymore. I didn't win, or I lost in the first round to someone who just started cooking, and I've been cooking for 30 years. It's such bullshit. On any day, at any time, a dish you make isn't great. You leave something out, you undersalt something, you forget to stick something in the pan a minute too early or a minute too late, and that's the difference between the meat being perfect or a little too underdone or overdone, and you go home. I mean, I judge these things. I experience that all the time. It's really, really, really slender differences between two different plates using the same ingredients. But I love it. I absolutely adore it. And it was a lot of fun to cook with Brooke. She and I had never cooked before, and her applesauce, I mean, she's great. I don't need to tell you how great she is. She's great. Chef, did you watch Maestro, new Bradley Cooper opus about Leonard Bernstein? And if so, did you like it? Do you like classical music? Love classical music, love Bradley Cooper, love Leonard Bernstein. Knew him and his family when I was growing up in New York. His kids were contemporaries of mine, and the building that they lived in was where a lot of my friends lived. And so I would always be in their home a couple times a year. An amazing man, an amazing conductor, a complex human, and one of the great artists of any kind of the 20th century, full stop. Any tips for zhuzhing up spiral cut ham for my Christmas feast? 100%. You can baste with maple syrup. You just have to make sure it doesn't scorch. It's tricky. The easiest thing to do, you can do, bourbon and maple syrup, bourbon and honey. Bourbon and anything sweet on ham is great. But the easiest thing for me, and I always have them on hand because I love to eat it with chicken and different types of pork off the grill, is apricot or peach preserves 50-50 with Dijon mustard. Equal parts. And then just rub it all over that ham, put it in at 300 degrees because you don't want it to dry out, right? And your spiral cut ham has already been done, cooked, it just needs to be warmed up. And just keep basting with more and more and more of it. And the more of that apricot mustard crust or peach mustard crust that you can create, the better. Someone had some bad advice about Brussels sprouts. The other day, Lauren asked about how to make Brussels sprouts be less bitter, and this person said, remove the first layer of leaves before boiling them. I'm assuming or cooking them in any way. They're usually dark green. This will remove some of the bitterness. Another wives' tale. The outermost layers are the most fibrous. They're the least tender, but they're no less or more bitter than any other. In fact, they're typically less bitter. Inside in the core, where there's more moisture, in the center of any brassica, it will always be more bitter. So in fact, the opposite. Sorry, Ramsey. Julie wrote, I just finished watching Andrew and Zoe's holiday party. What a fun show. Thank you. Especially your salt cellar story. It's actually right behind me. I did a holiday special for Magnolia, the 23rd of December, Saturday. It repeats for anyone who wants to watch it. Of course, you can watch it on demand on Max or Discovery Plus. But in this holiday special that I did with my friend Zoe Francois, recipes, all the recipes at andrewzimmern.com, I talked about my grandmother's salt cellar. Wouldn't this be ironic if this is when it broke? My grandmother died at age 90, almost 40 years ago. So she was born 130 years ago. This was her mother's or grandmother's, we don't know. And it's very old and so beautiful. And the lid had a hinge on it, but it broke. And one of my cousins made this temporary one, but that broke also. But my cousin made it, so I'm going to use it until it disappears. But it's what I keep my salt in. And I have lots of things that I have my parents' copper pans. I have, this is cool though. Hold on. This is a 200-year-old carving set that has been in my family since it was bought. And I carve holiday roasts with it. And you can see the German-style butcher shape on the knife here. This is just stunning. And I love that it's deer antlers as someone who loves to hunt. So yeah, very precious to me. Don't come after it. I'm gonna have to job you with my fork. Any items bought in memory of what you grew up with? No. I mean, I do have my dad's old recipes and cookbooks and stuff like that, but I don't have anything I bought in memory of them. I've tried to create new memories of our own. Anyway, Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody has a happy and joyous 2024. See you next time.